Hello, everybody. This is Raleigh with From Cup to Coffee, and on today's episode, Bridging the Tastes, World Class Sommelier connects coffee and wine. Now, this morning, I am having a Freddo cappuccino, a Greek specialty coffee, with Ethiopian beans from Blue Bottle Coffee, actually. If you haven't checked out, it's fantastic. They have some very high quality beans. But besides what we're drinking today, I'd like to introduce our guest of the afternoon. We have Dr. Haris Papadimitriou from Athens, Greece. Haris, welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure, and I'm honored to be a part of this first podcast. I wanted to wish good luck to the trip, good roastings, good cuppings, good tastings. Thank you very, very much. I wanted to start with a question, if you don't mind,
Absolutely.
because you triggered me now about the coffee you're drinking, and you call it Freddo Espresso. So I'm coming from Athens, Greece. Now you're recording from Lexington, Kentucky, early morning, but you are there with your Freddo Espresso. So what about this Freddo Espresso? What's the specialty you think? What
Well,
what do you like about it?
that's a great question. So, of course, if we're speaking with a master of coffee from Greece, of course, we have to be drinking a Freddo espresso or Freddo cappuccino.
That's
But
why I connected.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, the Freddo espresso or cappuccino is kind of a Greek style specialty. You don't really see it outside of Greece, but it's really, think of it as a blended iced espresso with either some milk or just on its own straight espresso. But what I like about it is kind of it's a bold, simple flavor, right? You don't have a lot of other stuff going on,
Exactly.
but also that chilled when you're beating the espresso with the ice in the mixer. Oh man, it's the perfect drink for if it's hot outside, if you're on the beach, whatever it may
Exactly.
be. I love it as my go-to summer coffee.
You cover me full, and I'm happy. Like it's in Greece it's a big fashion, but also it makes really sense, and that's the big difference, winter and summer. And I'm happy that you bring this up because it's a thing that you can have it light, bold, is not covering you,
Mhm.
it's not overwhelming. It's really, really balanced, let's call it,
Mhm.
because you match the water, you match the coffee feeling. At the same time, you keep the acidity,
Mhm.
um, and the fact that Blue Bottle makes a great, great job there. I really like the way you start your day and the podcast here.
Well, thank you, thank you. We
So,
always try
so
to start
I,
with a nice cup of coffee, right?
Exactly. That's why I wanted to start with a nice cup of coffee and introduction of this technique, then introduce myself. So then we can go to
Absolutely.
introduce myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
so absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and
Okay. So real quick, I'm gonna present you how everything started. So I'm a medical doctor. I'm in epidemiology and microbiology, working in the States and in Greece. Right now, I'm based in Athens, Greece. I'm coming from a family that there are medical doctors too. My father epidemiology and my mother microbiology. We are fourth generation right now after my
wow.
great grandfather. Yeah, so it was a long road in medicine. Um, the funny part is that everything started just like for fun and through a big passion that I realized I have since I was maybe
Mhm.
7, 8 years old. I got home. I was always running around my mother or my grandmother, uh, cooking or making the table, setting up the plates, the cutlery, the glasses, the cups. I love when I was going back home from school and I could smell some flavors.
Mhm.
I was thinking, oh, what mom cooked or what grandmother cooked. So yeah, so then I was planning what to cook during the weekend. So I really like cooking. Um, I decided to make some classes when I was 18 years old to become a sommelier, but really for fun, like a hobby. I found a class here in Athens for 6 months
Wow.
to
So,
become. You
sorry, I
know,
don't mean to interrupt, but tell us if
no,
if
no,
if someone doesn't know what that is, could you explain briefly what a sommelier is and kind of
yeah.
what that entails?
So sommelier is a person that has a knowledge on wines, on grapes of wines, on the origin of wines, how the
Mhm.
wine is produced, how the wine is served, how the wines how we keep the wines into the cellars. It's very important. So our job is to serve wine in restaurants, to create a cellar and put the wines in a row, make some tastings and understand if the wine, first of all, is healthy, because this is all about the first step is if the wine is healthy, and then we discuss about quality. And at the same time, what is very very important there, and what I like, you do wine pairings with food.
Gotcha.
And with that being said, going back to what I was saying, even though I'm not a drinker, I go and I drink too much, I like to taste different things and I like to cook. So I was looking to find something and match wine with food. What's the perfect pairing, let's call it?
Mm-hmm.
Like wine with this meat or with this fish or with this salad, or depends the time of the day. So I found it very interesting, and that's what triggered me. Like in real life, what took me there, it was the pairing.
Right, right.
So
And so, I mean, you started these classes with this deep interest you've had since a kid. But to my knowledge, it didn't just, you didn't just take a couple classes here and there and said, that's it, packing up, that was fun. Can you tell
exactly.
us a little bit of what happened? I know I'm setting you up for this question, but tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about,
no.
what you accomplished during your time as this master of taste, so to speak.
So yeah, so it started just for fun and hobby, like I said, and then on the fourth month, I found some very good classes in Switzerland, which I attended back in 2007, and like I took an official paper becoming a diploma, a sommelier there officially, and I said, let's take it, let's see where that can take me. Like I started just for fun, just to prepare food and wine, but I like the service. I like how you prepare the wine. I like when you go, you open each bottle and you realize that each bottle is different. So I said, let's give it a try. Let's start studying geography about wine. Let's start uh, discussing and how the chemistry of wines, or uh, how wine starts from scratch. So I really started deep into it. I started going to some competitions. It was a big challenge for myself. In a parallel world, I was studying medicine in a university. So winter, I was in medicine, and summers I was doing my classes
Wow.
for wines. Yeah, very nice and interesting journey. So when I finished from Switzerland, um, I started working in some restaurants. I worked in hotels. I worked in Paris. Then I worked in Napa Valley, and then I was in Crete for 7 years, seasonality, like
Mm-hmm.
only summers. Uh, then I won a contest here in Greece, uh, and I went after the next year I won. I went to the European competition where I really faced like some really professional sommeliers, people that they have passion and drive for wine service and perfection. So the one after the other, I was looking to go. I accomplished what I wanted with wines.
Mm-hmm.
I took knowledge, and that never stops, of course. But I went to some competitions, and I was happy there. I could see a different world. It was a different window
Right.
for me. But I had a limit. I couldn't continue working restaurants or hotels, because then clinics came.
Of
Medicine
course. Yeah.
was
I
and is
mean,
my main job, and I said I cannot stay late at night.
mm-hmm.
So I stopped working night shifts, let's call it, in restaurants. So I said I need to find a way to stay connected with wines. So I started making some new seminars, but early mornings, afternoons, or summer during my breaks.
Great.
And I
Yeah.
found a big interest on coffee, because
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, all right, coffee. You can pair it with food." I remember always,
Exactly. That's
yeah,
see, I was gonna ask you actually that exact same question because when you're talking about, you got interested in wine because of pairing with food. Well, I'm thinking coffee. I'm like, you go in your morning coffee shop, you're gonna get, a little something to eat there too. And I guess so. That's how you kind of got into specialty coffee. Is you
no, it's
really, you dived into that wine experience, but then transitioned over to specialty coffee. So how did that happen because of the food interest?
Yes, it happened. So again, going back to the experience that and the memories we have as kids, like I always remember when I was serving as a sommelier, or when friends or family are having a dinner. At the end, they were saying, "Oh, can we have an espresso after the dinner?"
Mm,
It's really the mentality a lot here in Europe and in Italy and in the States too. That after food you have your coffee,
right. Yeah.
or to wake you up, or it helps a lot, and it's true to digest.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, we start the dinner with let's call it champagne as an aperitif, and you match it with some blinis, some small canapes. Then you go on your first plate, you have your white wine or your red wine, and you do wine and food pairings. Then you do a sweet wine with sweets, okay,
Hmm.
or a grappa with sweets. Why the coffee goes by itself? We need
Right.
to pair the coffee with something. So I said, let's go and study how we can pair coffee with food.
Interesting.
So I went into the tea and coffee section
Hmm.
to study. So we came together. So I tried to go deep down on the coffee industry and how coffee is made.
Okay.
And I realized that coffee beans are like grapes. They're hanging,
Right.
yeah, on a leaf, on a tree. They have roots on the ground. You harvest them.
I mean,
So,
yeah, I would even say from
right,
far away, looking at maybe a grape tree or a coffee bean tree, especially with the coffee beans being red, they don't look that different when you think about it from a very general
right.
perspective, right? I
But
mean, that's
you said it right. That's what triggered me. And to be honest, I didn't have this knowledge.
yeah,
I didn't
and
have the
that's
knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge, and many people they don't have the knowledge. And I think this is one of the things we need to discuss, not only here in general. We need to educate people. Like a weak part, let's say, of the coffee and wines too, is that people. It's not this how to say elegant and flashy of the coffee, of the
right.
wines, of the dinners. We need to start from scratch and understand that it's soil, it's roots, it's farmers that they are working difficult out there, and they are really, like you said, some red berries and fruits hanging in the tree. Like so,
I
when
mean,
I
yeah,
realized it,
it's
I said many common things here.
right. It's like a basketball game, right? You're not gonna watch the last 5 minutes and say, "Oh, I got the whole deal," you know? You
And
have to
you
watch
touch
it
a
from the
sensitive nerve
beginning.
part. That was a good one, right?
Yeah, I thought
Exactly.
we'd we'd
You,
we'd, we'd use some relative
That
metaphors,
that's
right?
that's a perfect one. I totally agree. You need to go to training every day. You need to have your locker rooms healthy.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to be aligned. That's the way you give the best example at the end of the game and during the game.
Right.
I
So
totally agree with you.
so you kind of talked about, the similarities of coffee and wine, as like as a fruit, as
Yeah.
the seed. But what about like the flavor profiles? Because I mean, I know the way you describe the wine flavor and coffee flavor can be different, but at the same time, I think I've noticed a couple similarities, especially when it comes to body and mouthfeel. So can you kind of explain, maybe just for the audience, what are the similarities or maybe some differences that you see with these flavor profiles between coffee and wine?
That's a very good one. So you said it right. I will also add the flavor part. When you smell the coffee, it has
Mm,
similarities with the wine. So we still have how the coffee looks, how dark it is, or how transparent it is, like the coffee does it too. Then you have the mouth and the taste, and then you have the aftertaste feeling. So they're the same. They approach the same. And what connects them, it's what we said. So if we put the things in a row, the coffee, the coffee beans,
mm-hmm,
the wine grapes, the vineyards. So they are soil, microclimate, depending. When
right.
I'm saying microclimate is the soil, the exposure on the east, on the west of the coffee beans or the coffee farm or the
Mm-hmm.
wine farm. The weather, the rain, the heat.
So
So
so microclimate goes beyond just, hey, this is a Napa Valley, this glass of wine, or it's, this is
Exactly.
an Ethiopian bean. This kind of goes into,
Eh,
even more specifically to
exactly.
region.
Exactly. It's Ethiopia Girgachefe. So, or
Ah,
it's a Napa from a specific area, or if it's a Bordeaux wine from the left bank or the right bank. We
so
have the rivers run in the middle.
there's a difference really,
Yeah,
just that specific. You could taste a difference if it was on, depending on which bank it was on, the coffee
exactly.
bean.
So you have the geisha
Wow.
from Colombia. You have the geisha from Ethiopia there. So it's completely different. So as we started, so far, if you think wine and coffee are more or less the same, right?
Right.
Different fruits, but environment
Mm-hmm.
depending. Then there are so many distinct coffee flavors uh, that you can find inside a cold brew, all right,
Yeah.
that you can find on wine. Like it's complex, it can be fruity,
Mm-hmm.
and all this comes through the fermentation. A thing that they have in common is the fermentation.
Right.
Coffee needs to be fermented, wine needs to be fermented.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the chain that connects them right
Oh, the
there.
fermentation process. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, both coffee and wine have to be fermented. And I don't think a lot of people know that, coffee is fermented before it ends up in your
uh,
cup. That's a whole process to it as well.
I'm very happy you bring this here, and I'm proud of this podcast that you start here because you want to
Thank
educate
you.
people to understand the small details on how your coffee ends up inside your cup to enjoy it. Yes, it needs to be fermented. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't ferment the coffee bean, you cannot eat it the same way you can eat and bite a grape. Don't get me wrong, I love to bite coffee beans. It's a very nice experience. Uh, but the grapes you can eat them, the coffee beans you cannot eat them. So they need to be fermented. So good point that you said fermentation is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Sun dry them is the key. That's why you use the sun beds and the sun
Oh,
dry
yeah. I've
the
seen that,
coffee beans
yeah.
to start the fermentation. The bean is green beans. What when I'm telling you a coffee bean, the first thing that comes in your mind, what it is? What's the color?
Right, when you think coffee bean, you think, right, brown. Right, brown or
Exactly.
tan.
But that means roasted,
Exactly.
right? So roasted means the next level. You ferment the coffee that is the coffee bean that is green, then you roast it, it becomes dark. So you take the grapes, you ferment them, you put them on the stainless steel or your bottle, and then you have your final product.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
you need fermentation. The same thing with bourbon, the same thing with whiskey. You
Oh,
need to
yeah.
ferment the ingredients. You need to ferment the corn. You need to ferment your grains to have the end product.
Right. So fermentation kind of goes, to what I'm understanding, hand in hand with flavor. Without fermentation, you're not going to get these complex flavor and aroma profiles that we're getting in high class bottles of wine or specialty coffee.
Yes, exactly. And for example, the coffee anaerobic fermentation
Mm-hmm.
that they do sometimes, it brings a very winey character
Interesting.
on coffee. And when I'm saying winey character, it has this red fruit feeling that some wines are having.
So that's actually a question I was going to ask you. Speaking, you're an expert of wine. Is there's a couple specialty coffee that I've actually tried that say on their flavor profile hints of red wine. That's what I was going to ask you. How does a bean get a red wine flavor? I get maybe fruity, I get earthy, but so is that how red wine comes? Can it be primarily through, anaerobic fermentation, or are there other ways that coffee beans can get that, that red wine vineyard flavor profile?
Uh, I love it. I love it, and it's something that I discovered it during my journey on the coffee tastings. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started tasting or smelling coffee and was taking back to wine, I was saying, "Wait a minute, this maybe it smells. It could be like a Cabernet, or it could be like a Pinot. Of course, it's not, or a Pinot Noir, but the connection is that both products are fruits, like fruits,
Mm-hmm.
like So the red fruit of the coffee bean and the red fruit of the wine. is what brings you there, the fermentation part.
Very similar, right?
You really want to avoid oxygen on wine. It doesn't help you because it oxidizes the wine. Sometimes you really want to avoid oxygen on some coffee beans. So
Right, and
that's why it
that
brings
comes
you
with
this feeling.
the packaging, right? I mean, you see these airtight packaging with those
Yeah,
valves on the bags, so that's to avoid oxygen inside your coffee.
exactly. The same way you need to have your bottles and your stainless steel tank or
Mm,
your bourbon bottles sealed and closed, because if you have oxygen, it's it's alive, like vivid organism. The wine, the bourbon,
right.
they breathe. Like
It's
sometimes you have in your cellar, let's say you have a cellar.
yeah.
I'm not changing the subject, but you will understand where I'm going there now. So it breaks a bottle. It breaks a bottle there. Everybody says, and they're right, you don't have to use Clorox, you don't have to use soaps,
Mhm.
because the wine will absorb the smell, even though it's
Interesting.
inside the bottle, because they are alive and they smell, they age, they absorb. So if you give them oxygen, they will take oxygen, they will be oxidized.
I understand. Okay. Wow, that's so. I mean, that's just hard to get my wrap my brain around that.
Yeah.
You know, and when
Each bottle is alive. Yeah.
it's
Each coffee bag, it's alive. You need to take care of it like you take care of a baby.
I mean,
Not,
heck, when yeah, when we, I mean,
you
you know,
know,
when you open that bottle of wine, you let it breathe, right? I mean, that's life right there.
that's that's why I said before that you will get it. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we say sometimes some wines they need to open up and breathe. What do you mean by breathing? What is this? Of course they
Mm-hmm.
do. They're like sometimes there are specialty coffee bags and beans that they are telling you, companies they're telling you, before you grind, open the bag 30 seconds or 1 minute.
Interesting.
Or
Okay.
after you grind the coffee beans, please pull your espresso or your pour over in 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because what sometimes helps you before the air, now it's your enemy. It will get
Okay.
oxidized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
It sounds like a combination to me of. I mean, I'm more familiar with the bourbon industry, but it sounds like a combination of, you know, science, but also art. It sounds like a 50-50 split. When you're talking
Yeah.
about, you know, things that I've heard in my biology classes, you know, anaerobic, aerobic, you know, oxidation, this and that. But at the same time, you're talking about aromas and flavor profiles and all these this training that you've done. I mean, it's so interesting to me how that split kind of comes down the middle. And I think that's what a lot of people find to be exciting with coffee, wine, and other spirits and you know, teas, similar stuff, is that it's not just one or the other. You know, you can't put a little equation into your calculator and be like, this is going to be my perfect cup, you know, bottle of wine. Same thing with coffee. You
No.
can't say, oh, if I just do XYZ, it meets these criteria of oxygen and this and that. You got the best bean in the world, you know?
You nailed it.
It's,
You nailed it.
yeah.
Exactly. You know, it doesn't matter if I say it or the best sommelier on the planet said it. And because I know that you are really familiar and you have a great knowledge of bourbon, you and your family. And it doesn't mean that a perfect bourbon expert said XYZ bourbon is a perfect one. We
Mm-hmm.
need to understand what you said right now. It takes many things to have the final product, and all ends up to your palate and taste. If I say
Right.
it's good, yes, quality good, but it doesn't mean that you have to like it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that you are drinking a great Freddo espresso now, you like it. Maybe you will give it to a person and will say, you know what, I don't like it. I'm not dying for this. Maybe they will. This is the magical part, and this is what we have to keep with people. What triggered me and keeps me like all the time awake in the industry is that we need to make people to understand what they really like.
Mm-hmm.
A
Yeah.
cup of coffee during your morning. These moments are holy moments, let's call them, that you start your day. You want to start that, you want to enjoy it, like the same way you did it. You start the podcast with the coffee you drink. I love it
Right.
because you made your coffee, you made your
Mm-hmm.
Freddo espresso, and you need to be sure that you like the beans you have. Not because somebody said it only, but because you understand from where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great actually point that you bring up, and I was going to kind of mention that is, I've had situations where someone will hand me this glass of wine and say this is the best wine I've ever had, and I'll try it, and it's really not. It doesn't excite me. And the same thing with
Right.
coffee. Take my mother for example. I love Ethiopian coffee, Kenyan coffee. I love the rich acidity. It is. I mean, I can drink that by
Same
itself,
taste we have.
right, all day long.
Yeah, me
But
too.
for my
I love the
mother,
SL24, SL28,
oh yeah.
this metallic and minerality. I love it. I
Right,
can have it all
there's
day.
so much flavor, but then I know people like my mother and other people who are like, it doesn't matter if it's 95 plus specialty coffee, if it's from Ethiopia or Kenya, it just doesn't
Hmm.
fit their palate. And that's
Hmm.
where, I think people get a little bit
Magical.
and I'm sure in the coffee industry too, is that's where I think some people can get maybe call it closed-minded, but they say, "Oh, this is the best, bottle of wine or this and taste that I've tasted in years," and it may not, it may not excite you. It may not be
Is it?
according to your flavor profile. But at the same time, you have to
Uh-huh.
think that everyone's taste buds completely different. I mean, I was doing a cupping the other day, and I had never been so sure of a flavor in my life. I tasted this and I go, I am getting lemon, citrus, the strong lemon taste and the aroma, the taste, everything, even after 20 minutes. And we come back to the cupping table. I was the only one who got any lemon. And I was like, guys, girls,
Yeah.
I swear by this. But it's so
Yeah.
interesting how that works out. It's based on the individual palate. And that's where, coffee is hard. You can't have, as I'm sure one bag of coffee and say, we're going to sell this one bag and everyone's going to love it. And this is great. That's why Blue Bottle or Onyx, they have all these different, not only flavor profiles of countries, but even region specific as well. You have to
Yeah.
find what you like. You can't let anyone else tell you that. They can make suggestions, as you know. That was, your job.
No, exactly. Yeah. No,
But
you present the basic things, and then you take it from there. I like a lot the points you pointed. Some no, you didn't point. You nailed now the subject. So on what you said, because you said your mother or your friends, they have this profile. I love it. When a person comes in and maybe we drink 95 plus or 96 plus, and comes and says, you know what, I'm not dying for this.
yeah.
Or you open, like for example, I love some 1982 Bordeaux or some 1999
Hmm.
99 again Bordeaux or Burgundy. It doesn't mean that you have to like it. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
Even though objectively the years are great. Okay.
Hmm.
And by saying great means that the waterfall, the heat, the summers that were cool, the harvest was healthy.
Hmm.
These things are objectively, we have to say, yes, 1982 is a great year, can age great, let's say.
Right.
But doesn't mean that you, Rolly, or myself, uh, you have to like it. No. And that's the magical part. That's what we have to do with coffee too. We
Hmm.
need to understand what you really like. That's why I said before, you cannot start your day. You start your day with Kenya. I love start my day with Kenya. If you make your mother or my mother start with day with Kenya because I made her to try, she doesn't like it. Why
Yeah.
to do that, right? So
Hmm.
that's why we have Ethiopia, we have Colombia. That's why we have Chardonnay, and that's why we have Riesling. That's why we have Pinot. That's why we have Champagne, and that's
Hmm.
why we have sparkling wines. All right. That's why we have bourbon and we have whiskey. So people, we
Of
have to
course.
train them, but everybody needs to understand why.
And that's where you kind of mentioned that before. It all starts with education, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's you need to be.
That's why I love your podcast, what you do now.
Thank you, thank you.
That's why I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
mean, we're not trying to do a 9 to 5, class, of course, and that's not what I'm recommending for people. But just learning more about coffee and spirits and what you like and don't. That's the fun of it. Experimenting, tasting. What do I like?
Yeah.
What don't I like? That's part of. And
Yeah.
I wanna ask you a question just because I have you here, and I don't really. This is kind of a delight and a special treat. So I have to ask,
Thank you very much.
as a sommelier, you talked about what year, is considered a good year. Are there any recent, wine vintages you have tasted that kind of stood out to you in the past year or two? And the same question with, coffee beans. Are there any beans that
Yeah.
you've tasted somewhere that you say, wow, this is an exceptional roast?
So vintage is a great question. So vintages I like a lot in Champagne, 2012, 2016. I like a lot. 1982, you can call it not a recent one, but sometimes when you drink it and it's blind, you say, man, maybe it's recent. Sometimes it really feels young still.
Interesting.
1982, yeah, I like a lot. I love, for a reason, I like a lot the Napa 1996, Oregon 2000
Hmm.
year, I like a lot. And nowadays, 2015 and 2016 is a great vintage. Both of
Great
them
years.
great years. I'm very curious what will happen this year. We
Hmm.
have the earliest harvest. The harvest starts now in August, even in the wine industry. So
Okay.
I'm really curious how that will be. Looks like we're gonna have wines because of weather and dry climate that they will be really hardcore. By I mean hardcore, I mean that they really like to go deep down in the roots and find somewhere water. So they really need to try. They really need to try to survive.
Interesting. See,
So
I know
yeah,
I know our podcast can only go on so long, but that's, questions maybe for another time we can talk about is, how does
anytime, of
weather
course.
affect, coffee and beans and wine vintage? That's
Yeah.
so interesting. I mean, I'm thinking, this year, at least in where I am, we've had unprecedented heat waves followed by unprecedented, flooding with
Hmm.
endless rain. I can't even imagine how that changes, the flavor profile of coffees in the regions that they're being grown. I mean, that's a whole other
Yeah.
a topic for another time, but
Yeah.
that's
But
so interesting.
real quick we can say a small example. Like if you don't have water for a week, and I'm gonna tell you, there's water in, what to say, there's water in Nashville.
Mhm.
Are you gonna try to go walking to find water? You're gonna try to do it, right?
Right.
So the coffee plant and the coffee roots and the wine roots, they're gonna go deeper and deeper to find at least humidity or water. So that makes them to bring up more minerality and different characters. So that's why sometimes years and vintages are different.
Okay.
So
Right. Yeah.
you're
No.
gonna do your best to find it. They're gonna do their best to find it. When too
Mhm.
much water, you're running to hide yourself somewhere. So
Mhm.
they need to grow their leaves to be under, to be protected. Okay?
I
Too much
understand.
water will create some time to be rotten. So that's not good.
Wow. So, I
Um,
mean, yeah, what you learn from as a sommelier is not just, hey, we like this flavor, this body. It's so much more of a holistic
no,
education. I think that's what
exactly.
I think is so interesting about, what you've done. But
You need to spread this word, like you said right now. It's a holistic approach.
right, but
It's a
you know,
holistic approach. Yeah.
this holistic approach is so interesting to me, and I think, of course, it can be applied to coffee as well. But even with,
Definitely, yes.
you've going back to, you train to identify all these flavors in wine, and what you like and what you don't like and how to pair this. How did you train to identify these wine flavor profiles, and how does that
All
transition to
right.
coffee as well? Is there a connection between the two? Can you train in wine and then be able to discern those flavors in coffee as well?
All right. I like it. I like a lot the question because I had on the side what you mentioned before about the lemons. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you do a cupping and you're the only one inside the room that you mentioned lemons.
Right.
So I have a similar example. I will answer your questions, but I will answer at the end as I want to say this real quick. So lemons, nobody said lemons. I was in a competition and I had an Italian friend that we were doing blind tasting, and
Mm-hmm.
he was tasting, I was tasting. We are getting both of us super high notes, like 98 out of 100, 96 out of 100. And the judges were saying we need to run another round. So we ran 4 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, he had a 97, I had a 95. I lost, he won. Uh, and when I went at the end and we were analyzing the results, the judges said that what made the difference is that we were trying a specific grape, Pinot Grigio, from the north part of Italy, that the
Mm-hmm.
characteristic is asparagus. Okay,
Asparagus.
I didn't even touch asparagus. I didn't feel. I never felt. So when I left, I was driving back and I was at home. I was at the hotel. I was saying, "What happened there? Why I never felt?" And he was saying, Donatello, the guy, he's an amazing person. He was the first thing he was saying, basic characteristic asparagus. And I was saying, why? Why? No, not because I'm the best, but why I didn't even put it on the last flavor profile.
Yeah, why didn't even pop up a
Yeah,
little bit on your radar?
exactly, exactly right. So, like after 2 months, he invited me at his house in Italy. Man, it was all around asparagus. His family had plants of asparagus in the garden. They were growing their own asparagus. So you can understand
Oh.
that I could smell in the morning, late at night, the wine I tasted. So it
Mm-hmm.
flips. So now it makes sense. So with that being said, to be trained, you need to be exposed. You need to go out there. You definitely need to drink coffee, to smell coffee, to try different roasting profiles, different washed or natural processed coffees. But you need to be exposed in nature because it's from where it starts. So if
So,
I never smell asparagus, how to smell it? So
mm-hmm.
nobody in the room that you were had the exposure you have in lemons. So how can
Right.
they smell lemons if they smell lemons but not like you do, let's say?
Mm-hmm. It's all about exposure. It's all about
It's
experience.
exposure, experience. In wines, let's say you need to try wines from Tuscany,
Mm-hmm.
from Napa Valley, from Oregon, from Bordeaux, from Austria. Then you need to have coffee from Kenya. You need to have coffee from Colombia, from Brazil. And then you go specifically, I need to try coffee from Brazil, the one farm next to each other, or the same coffee beans, different processed, or different roasted. That's another part because
Interesting.
it's nature, then it's the beans, the fruit, then it's human being, how they harvest, how they do the process, then how you roast,
Mm-hmm.
how you pour over, how you pull the espresso, and the temperature you serve. So it's not just a coffee, right? Or
Right.
just a wine.
And
So you need a lot of training.
that's what that's what it is. It's nature's flavors coming out in your cup and in your glass. And
Yes,
I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense. If you've never had, let's say you've never tasted a grapefruit before, and you have a
exactly.
cup of coffee that has hints of grapefruit, how are you supposed to know? Oh yeah, your brain isn't trained with this.
Exactly.
It's the same thing
You
as
cannot connect
if
it.
you can't connect. Same thing as if you're sick, and whenever you have the flu or something, and your body builds
Mm,
up that immunity. I mean, it's the same thing. Your body learns from exposure, and
exactly.
without exposure, you can't.
Exactly.
So you're making
Exactly.
that. It won't make that medical
You
connection,
need,
right?
no, no, I like it. You need to be vaccinated, right? So to be vaccinated, you need to go out there and smell. Your vaccine to identify the smells and the taste is to be exposed on the on nature.
Exactly. I
So
mean,
to be
that's.
vaccinated, you need to have some immunity to protect yourself, let's call it,
Mm-hmm.
or to have the flu, like you said. Real, like I like a lot the example, and like some Bordeaux wines, some Cabernet Merlot, right now, like the 96 or the 2000 year, or in general, left bank Bordeaux wines, they can smell like a blueberries after rain. It's like when you walk in the forest,
Wow.
like and you feel this humidity of the soil and the green leaves. You need to walk there to identify this.
Of course,
If you've
yeah.
never been in your life in the forest after rain, okay, or
Mm-hmm.
if you've never been uh, most of us, of course, they smell this. When they build the new road, the smell.
The asphalt, kind of yeah.
So Barolo wines, Nebbiolo has this earthy feeling, or the skin, this leather feeling. So if you never smell it, how to identify?
Yeah.
If you never smell these green leaves that the Kenya brings, the SL24,
Mm-hmm.
right? How to identify? So you need to be exposed.
Interesting. That's so, yeah, exactly what you said about, same thing as a vaccination. You have to get vaccinated or get sick to, have this exposure. It's the same thing with learning to identify these flavor profiles. And man, I'm sorry, but I had the biggest smile on my face when you said, it tastes like blueberries after rain. I'm just going to tell you right now, if you come up to me and say this cup of coffee has hints of blueberry after rain, I'm going to think you're just a little bit crazy. I think that's
All
a real.
right, yeah.
I mean,
I get
that's
it.
yes, but that's so specific, and it's so amazing to kind of see the difference in our
Uh-huh.
palates. I mean, I'm thinking fruity, or floral. I mean, you're talking
Bravo.
about not only individual fruits and tastes, but also, what is it on a hot summer day, is it on a rainy day, and I think that's just
Wow,
so
exactly.
amazing.
Like now fall is coming, some good first rains will come. If you walk out there, you will feel this soil or wet
Hmm.
soil feeling that some coffee are bringing. And the blueberries, it's a sweet smell. When the
Yeah,
coffee brings blueberry, it's a sweet smell. Or this green smell, it's full of spring.
right.
So this is the connection also that you asked me at the beginning, how you connect coffee and wine.
Hmm.
There are many similarities. You're trying to identify flavors that nature gave to your fruit. This is
Yeah,
the fruit of coffee bean. This is the fruit of your grape. Those are your grains for your bourbon, your corn, or so. This is how
hmm.
I find it magical, and I like a lot that you said yes. Maybe you are crazy,
Well,
but when you said it, when you go to pair wine with food, and I open the window again because it's what brought me into this window.
hmm.
uh you need to match it. So you say, I have this, let's say, fish,
Right.
right? I want to put some lemon on top. I'm saying, no, why to put lemon? Let's put a Riesling that has acidity, has this lemony character, and pair it. So you don't put your lemon, you put your wine on top of your fish. So you are eating and you're drinking your wine, and it's a perfect match. Then you say, I have my, okay, let's call it, Rolly, please give me a cake or something, a sweet that you want to pair it with a coffee.
Right.
Like, will match, you name it. You name a cake or a sweet that you want to pair with blueberries, taste or smell, something.
Hmm. Uh,
Give me the
uh,
name. Give me the
okay.
name or a sweet.
What is something? What about something like a simple um like a
Simple it has
croissant,
to be. Bravo.
just a little bit of buttery, a little bit of sweetness.
Perfect. Perfect. Why to fill your croissant with blueberry jam and not bring your coffee flavor profile with blueberries? It will be phenomenal, I think, the match,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And I like a lot that you went simple because that's the way we have to keep it simple with the coffee, not complicated. So you have to have a clean taste and palate.
Hmm. That's
So
interesting.
with your croissant, I will give you a blueberry uh, coffee
A
style.
blueberry coffee style. That's
Mm.
I know we talked about this a little bit before. I'm really excited too for our next couple episodes with a great baking team in London about how they merge those flavors. How do they, also including coffee. When do you include coffee inside the baked good itself? What I never thought about that as using coffee as a source of flavor of a blueberry or fruity flavor to actually complement the baked good. And I think that's something that you don't think about every day. You don't learn about, and that's so interesting. I
I'm
think it's
looking
amazing.
forward for this podcast you're gonna do with the bakery. I really, really wanna see their approach on coffee pairings.
I'm very
Uh,
excited.
yeah, because it's another thing that they
Hmm.
can go together. They
Yeah,
can go together.
absolutely. So I don't mean to rush you, but I do have one question that I knew I
Yeah.
had to ask you today. I had so we've talked about coffee, wine, how it's made, flavor profiles, this and that. But here in the US at least, going to a wine vineyard is a very, very common place to visit as like a vacation or a weekend trip to go enjoy the surroundings, enjoy the vineyard, taste test. I mean, even think about it as a romantic getaway. It's very common. But I don't really hear a lot of people going on a romantic getaway to, let's say, a coffee bean farm, Colombia or Brazil. I mean, where's the bed and breakfasts right there, But I guess my question to you is, why do you think that's the case? Do you think that's something that needs to change? I know we've talked about visiting a coffee farm, in Brazil or Colombia or really anywhere, but, is it the location of the farms? Is just something that's underdeveloped that you can kind of see it in the future going towards there? What's your opinion on that?
It is the best question you made so far. I love each one of them, of course, but this is fun. And it's something that we really, really, really need to develop. We really need to develop because that's the way we will understand from where coffee comes from. Location can be, yes, one thing. I understand what you mean. But it's super romantic to go and see the farmers, how they're working. The places are very nice. They are pure. It can be a pure touristic approach. Like couples, they can go, family, they can go. Of course, there are some difficult places to go. I'm saying, not only there are some places that are dangerous, like in wine business too, or difficult places to reach.
Of course.
But I think it's not developed. And I think it's not developed because, you know what? We go to United States of America, we go to Canada, or we go to Germany, Austria, and we say, we really want to see how the harvest of ice wine happens. So the weather, like you're freezing cold, the hills are so dangerous and difficult to approach, but you do it because it's developed. So they have some things that you can do there. They have a car that can take you, or they have accommodations. Right. They have your bed and breakfast there. Even though the environmental circumstances and everything is difficult, it's not easy. Or you can go to Rheingau, the river in Germany, where it is literally impossible. If you Google and you see in maps how they do the harvest and Rheingau, it's crazy. But people, they go because around the area, it's fully developed. And you pass with a boat or you pass with a car and you can see where the harvest happens. It doesn't mean that each time you need to be able to go inside vineyards or inside the coffee farmers. You can see them. So it's not developed. All right. So why not to travel to Costa Rica? Why not to travel to Brazil? Like, it's perfect to go to Brazil and see Copacabana, but at the same time, you can go and visit some farms and understand what's going on.
Right. And
why not to start your day? What's better, Rolly? Can you imagine to start your day morning around the coffee farm with the coffee that comes from the terroir next to you,
from right? 5 feet away from you, right? Yeah,
exactly.
You can go to the tree and say, "This is where my, these are the beans that I'm trying." And that's so interesting. I want to kind of circle back and emphasize here at the end what you said.
Sorry. The same way you go to Toscana, and you enjoy your dinner and you are overlooking the
vineyards,
the grapes, and you say, "Oh, my Sangiovese or my Assyrtiko from Santorini, or it comes from this specific terroir here."
Right, and that's I want to re-emphasize.
So what you want to say?
No. Yeah, what you said. There's something. It's nature, right? I mean, you're not going to be sitting in a big fancy house overlooking let's say a coffee farm. You want that natural feel, because at the end of the day, and what we talked about, we're under the impression that humans control everything. No, nature is what dictates our coffee. We're simply the middleman. We'll help you get from the plant to the cup, but at the end of the day, the land, the soil, the water, the weather, nature is what dictates our flavor. And I think that's probably a key takeaway from today's talk.
Exactly. And if we can put this to highlight it, I love it. You nailed it. It's very important. And I like how you wanna close this as it's not the fancy part. Yes, it's great. The wine, you can find it on a 3 Michelin star. The coffee, you can find it on a 95 plus from the hands of the best barista or the best sommelier. But at the end of the day, in 2020 or 1996, nature decided to bring you this.
Right.
And people, farmers, worked hard, really hard to
Oh, of
bring you,
course.
really. Okay. So it's
Hmm.
not a fancy, it is really nature. So we need to understand that. And I think I said it 3 or 4 times, the educational approach of your podcast and this hybrid approach you have with bakers, with sommeliers, with baristas. Like, for example, you have me here that I'm a person that I work with wines, but I work also with coffee. You want to bring this educational part to people and not the fancy one
Of
to
course.
understand. Because, of course, I know you for years, and that's what you like. You like quality, and you like to understand. You like to understand. You like to know where Kenya is,
Hmm.
or you like to understand what anaerobic means, or natural process or wash means.
Of
We don't
course.
have to be expert to say great wine or
Hmm.
great coffee. We have just to like it.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's what it comes down to, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter the situation, you can be sitting in the nicest restaurant in the world, but if your coffee
Yeah,
is a, let's say, a pod coffee that you get quick and easy, I mean, it doesn't matter. The quality can never be matched and made up for
never, never. Because if
by
you go
other
backwards, it
circumstances.
starts from how it was served, who
Hmm.
roasted, who harvested, how was the weather, how was the bag inside. It gets so many people. The person that they created the bag, who sealed the bag.
Oh, of
It
course.
doesn't matter if your restaurant is 3 Michelin star. If one mistake happened on the road, that's it. That's a magical part too.
Yep. Yep. And that's, I love to think about how many hands have touched, the coffee before it ends up at our
Uh-huh.
doorstep. Same thing with that bottle of wine sitting in everyone's cellar. It's not just one or
Yeah.
two people. So many hands have passed through that product, and we're just glad to be on the receiving end and then get to enjoy it, right?
Exactly, right. I agree with you. And so many persons also pass, like you are doing now. You're trying to reach perfection by educating people. So someone else is trying to educate the guy that is roasting, the guy that is harvesting, or the guy that is cupping
Of
or is
course.
putting inside the restaurant where you're at right now.
Of
Um,
course, and that's all we're trying to do here today, right, Haris?
yes. Congrats! Like I love the job. I follow you since the beginning from scratch. I'm sure people will love it. Um, they will really hug and be engaged with what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're excited. That's kind of the purpose and what we're trying to do here today.
I like that you're not myopic. You're not checking the things from just one dimension. You
Of course.
understand that it's a different dimensions here.
Holistic. That's
Um,
what we go back to. We talk about, right?
right,
Holistic. That's
exactly.
our word.
I just wanted to use the same one and you did it. Holistic. Holistic, exactly.
All right.
Good
Well,
one.
well, Haris, thank you so much for being on today's episode. I think
My
we
pleasure.
learned a lot. I mean, and I think after this episode, hopefully everyone's gonna go make another pot of coffee, another pull of espresso, and maybe even a glass of wine. Who knows?
Exactly. That's what I want to say. You can start your day with coffee, continue with the wine, like make yourself, to experiment. Like
Of course.
try coffee that you don't like, coffee that you like. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me here. I'll be glad to join anytime, and I will follow any single post and podcast you do.
Oh, we appreciate it. We very much do. And thanks for being on our show today. And we'll see you next time on From Cup to Coffee. Thank you all and have a
Thank you very
blessed
much.
day.
Thank you. Have a blessed day, guys. Have a blessed day, guys. Have a blessed day, guys.